Welcome back to day one of the very first WorldSkills UK live online International Skills Summit. Don't forget, during most of the sessions, as you watch them, you'll get a chance to ask questions of the panel, or maybe just to put forward some points of view based on your own expertise, based on your own areas in which you work. You can do so by clicking on the right-hand side of the screen. You'll see an option which says ask a question, just place your name and also ideally your job title, so we at least have some point of reference as to where you are based and the job you do, and we will ask as many of those questions as we can. And although we are, for obvious reasons, virtual, it is for that reason we want those questions and reaction, because we don't want to be that remote. Imagine we're all together in the NEC, just like the old days, which seem for us all so long ago. Now this is session 4. This is developing digital skills to boost international investment. As part of our panel this afternoon, we will be meeting Josie Kluwer, who's partner People Advisory Services of Government and Public Sector, Philip Mueller, who's Education Manager at Autodesk, and also Michael Mcguire, who's lecturer in Computer-Aided Architectural Design and Technology at New College, Lanarkshire. But before that, one of the things we are speaking about is, of course, the importance of digital skills. We mentioned it briefly when we had our keynote speech from Gillian Keegan. In fact, I asked her a couple of questions about it earlier on at the beginning of the day of this session. And we're joined by Emma Roberts. Emma is Head of Research and Public Affairs at WorldSkills UK. Welcome to the studio, Emma. It's very, very good to see you. It's important we talk to you about the importance of digital skills, because you were part of the team that worked on creating the report which had that at its heart.
Absolutely. Hi, Simon. So yes, we brought out a report in July of this year, which was all about international investment and how we can attract more international investment to the UK by focusing on excellence in skills, because that's what we are passionate about as an organisation. The latest figures, in fact, all of the figures generally over the last few years, show that when companies are looking to invest in the UK, they really want to see high quality skills, and that's what we can help with. The latest data from this year, from the EY survey, which I know Josie will talk about in more detail, showed that the UK has a real strength in digital projects. So we're naturally, as an organisation, wanting to monitor these trends and make sure that we can help promote digital skills to young people, to make sure that they can thrive and access really exciting and sustainable careers in those sectors. And I think in the report we say that we can do that in 3 main ways. So to start with, we can use our international benchmarking, which as part of a member of WorldSkills International, we can help employers, we can help governments access international benchmarking to show how the UK's digital skills match up to the best of the rest of the world. And really it's important to know what world class in any area looks like, and that's what WorldSkills can help with. We can also help through our world-class training methodology, which has been built up through decades of involvement in international skills competitions, and that's what we're rolling out to 20 colleges this year through the Centre of Excellence programme, which has just begun. And finally, we say in our report that we are absolutely committed to reviewing our portfolio of skills competitions. We have, over the last 5 years, moved more of our competitions over towards STEM areas, and that includes digital, so we're involved in everything from 3D game art to cybersecurity and cloud computing, and we want to do more of that. So we want to work with those in the tech sector and look at how we can help promote digital careers and digital skills to young people.
And it's quite interesting because since Kazan, and I think I mentioned before, I was lucky enough to be there, and I saw at first sight, at first hand, the work that they were doing with regards to areas like cyber security and other tech areas. It was relevant then, but my goodness me, it's become even more relevant today.
Absolutely. So I think the latest figures from 2018 show that The digital economy is worth about 7% of the UK economy. I wouldn't be surprised if when people do the number crunching on this year, that's rocketed even further. We are all reliant on digital skills, whether it's in our ordinary day jobs or whether it's part of the tech sector. And we need to make sure the UK is ready for that and can actually excel in those areas as well.
And just briefly, we probably will also bring our panel in on this as well, but I think it's interesting to focus on one of the expressions you use, which is world class. Now, of course, again, another great piece of education I received in Kazan was this idea of international benchmarking, to see the best of other countries, what they do, and more crucially, probably how they do it. But world class is one of those phrases that everybody uses about their own families, about their own businesses, about their own products, about the way that they transmit or navigate through the work they have to do. How do we define by what is colloquially world class and what obviously you've now investigated really is world class?
And I think that's, what we can do uniquely through our membership of WorldSkills International. We can see what other countries are doing, how they're performing, and it's constantly evolving. So unless we remain part of that community and that network and are able to feed it back into the skills system in this country, we won't be able to do that. So it's really important that we maintain that cutting edge in digital skills and feed that through into colleges and apprenticeships in this country.
Not now, but if people want to read the report, how can they do it?
On the WorldSkills UK website, it's all there to be seen.
Okay, great. Emma's going to stay with us for this session. Can I also bring in our panel at this point? We're joined by Josie Kluwer, who's partner People Advisory Services, Government and Public Sector. Just checking she's there. Yes, I can see her in the top. We're also joined by Philip Miller, who's Education Manager at Autodesk, and Michael Mcguire, Lecturer in Computer Aided Architectural Design and Technology, New College in Lanarkshire. What Philip and Michael don't know is when we were running through all of our events yesterday, we were going through the introduction to this particular item, and suddenly I looked up on the screen and Josie was actually there at the same time, which was purely by coincidence, but it was exceptionally serendipitous. So many thanks to all of you for joining us live on the programme this afternoon, part of WorldSkills UK Live Online International Skills Summit. Josie, if I can start with you, and but feel free, any of the panel at any stage, do join in, because as difficult as this is a much more glorified Zoom call than a Zoom call, but it still has the same problems of delay and slight confusion. But please join in. Josie Kluwer, your partner, People Advisory Services, Government and Public Sector. And I know that it's worth talking to you about Ernst & Young's annual survey and crucially, what it tells us about what attracts international overseas investors to the UK.
Yeah, sure. So maybe I'll give a bit of background to the attractiveness survey. So what we're really trying to get out there is, why do companies or industries invest in the UK? And when we talk about foreign direct investment, what are we talking about? We are talking about organisations investing in offices or factories or R&D. We call it productive investment. It's a real thing you can point to. Why this matters for our economy is that it demonstrates a commitment to the economy, particularly the region, and it shows some confidence in the economy, because these kinds of schemes take about 3 years to get up and running. So having high foreign direct investment gives you a good sense of how confident investors are in the UK. So the 2019 report actually gives some really good news to the UK. So foreign direct investment is up by 5%. We grew our market share in Europe. We are getting investment from new types of new countries that we typically haven't got investment from in the past, like Turkey and Israel. So all that's great. The standout good news is in digital. And so the stats are 432 investments in digital projects last year, which is more than France and Germany combined. And actually, we're seeing the UK taking 30% of the projects, the digital projects that come to Europe, actually come into the UK. And why is that? Well, it's all about skills. So organisations are saying that when they're looking about where to invest, skills is absolutely up there as a top priority. And therefore, then add to that what we are seeing in terms of where direct investment is going to, so clean tech, digital, health and well-being, which of course have very strong digital and technical angles, and the importance of skills, then really the point about being world class in digital skills, really the case makes itself.
And where is that, if there is this significant, I mean, that obviously clearly is good news, if there is this significant investment into the digital economy, where is that going in the UK? What kinds of businesses is that investment going?
Yeah, and I think that's a really, really important point, because the vast majority of the money is going into the major cities. So 50% of all foreign direct investment is in London. That goes up when you're actually talking about tech or digital projects to 2/3. And what we see if we look backwards is London, the number of projects, particularly digital or tech projects, coming into London is just going up and up and up. And the number of projects, particularly tech and digital projects, going into towns or particularly small towns is going down and down and down. And so this is worrying, I think, for anyone who's interested in the levelling up agenda, and anyone who is thinking about getting investment into a smaller town. And I guess our perspective on that is that levelling up doesn't happen by accident, it happens by design. And actually thinking about regional strategies and industrial strategies, when organisations are coming together to think about regional strategy, industrial strategy, we absolutely need to be thinking about skills at the heart of that, because of course, back to the point before, that's what companies are looking for when they're looking for investment or where to invest.
And very briefly, and we will come back to you, and obviously you're welcome to continue with the debate whilst we speak to Philip and Michael. Do you feel there is still a sense of fear, not just from employees, but also from employers about digital and the changes? I'll give you a very quick example. Even at one of the places where I work, we have changed from something to something else. We've changed from something like Outlook to Teams. And that has filled me with dread. Even though I've had 30 years and I'm pretty skill savvy, I fear that, even though I know I can probably deal with it. Are you seeing that from both employers and employees?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, nobody likes change. Change is really hard. One of the things that I think COVID and the pandemic has shown us is that actually when there is necessity, people do just kind of get on with it, don't they? I guess a broader perspective on the digital skills debate is really about being really specific about what we mean by digital skills. And when we say we want to be world class in digital skills, getting to the granular level of the actual skills we're talking about, because we often talk about digital skills about being our deep technical experts, our kind of, coders and our software engineers and our data analysts. But also there are all of the rest of us who do other jobs who need to understand digital to perform their jobs in the best way they can. And also there are perhaps lower skill workers who are particularly vulnerable in difficult economic climate, who are going to need to upskill themselves in a digital way without necessarily being, a coder or an expert in, artificial intelligence. So I think that when we talk about digital skills and we talk about how we upskill people, I think we need to be quite specific and quite granular about what skills are needed where.
Okay, Josie, many thanks for that. Josie Kluwer, partner, People Advisory Services, Government and Public Sector, and also from the Ernst & Young point of view, this annual survey about what attracts international investors into the UK. If we can cross to Philip Mueller, who's Education Manager at Autodesk. Many thanks for joining us, Philip. Welcome to this section of the summit. Can I ask you, particularly in the construction sector, how important are digital skills in the area that you work in? Good afternoon.
Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to be part of this panel today. It's a topic which I'm extremely passionate about because I think there is a couple of points to digitization. Sometimes it's perceived to be as something difficult, and I think that changed really much. So as you also referenced, there are now many tools out there which actually makes it easy to combine the different workflows together. And also what I think the reason why digitization is so important in the construction industry is really the current situation that I think the World Economic Forum has shared that by 2045, we're probably going to exceed the 6 billion people mark in the world population. And as well, we are seeing around 200,000 people moving to city centers every day. As a result of that, currently we need to build around 1,000 buildings per day just to meet that demand. And also there is a problem which we have with infrastructure, where we on the one hand need to build new infrastructure, but on the other hand, we also have to rebuild old infrastructure which we're having, which needs also an investment by around 3.3 billion per year. So as a conclusion, I think we need really to build more. We have to build better, and we also have to think about wasting less resources. How can we really look into sustainable futures? And one thing which really comes to my mind is that we are really not connecting data at the moment. So we have, for example, people who use digital tools on the construction side, and we have people who are using digital tools in the offices, but they are not really combined. And a survey by McKinsey, it's estimated that currently there is about 1.2 trillion of savings which the construction industry could have by just connecting the different data to each other. And I think this would really help to solve a lot of things. And the beauty of this really is that if you have people working in the office, they can share the data to the engineers. They can then share the data with the contractors. Everybody can make adjustments and make contributions, and ultimately send the data directly to the construction site. So somebody there could directly see all the data live being visualized. And beyond that, the beauty I really see here is that with the WorldSkills BIM competition, which we have started to work on since the last 3 years, we are exactly doing that. So we're working with young students to build up the skills for connecting the different data sets to each other and creating a seamless workflow. And that's really what the industry is looking for. That's also what we saw during the last couple of months, is that lots of companies have been really investigating how can I combine the data, and also who can help me doing that. So lots of students who have gone out, who were open-minded, who were looking into how can we combine data, how can we streamline it, they were taken up immediately.
And even despite all of the above, and clearly you are seeing vast amounts of changes in your own sector, has the development of digital made traditional construction skills any less relevant, or do you still need that firm foundation of the traditional skills need to be there, the tech just makes it a bit easier?
I think it's a combination of things. So I think that there will be traditional skills in the future, but they will be using digital tools as well. And as also referred before, I don't think it's hard. And the reason why I don't think it's hard is that there are students currently out there who are using mobile phones a couple of hours per day. And if you just install an app, which you can use then also on the construction side to track issues, then you're suddenly connecting the different trades together. So a bricklayer could ultimately look at the plans on his mobile phone. Then if something goes wrong, he could track an issue, and somebody in the office would see that directly. Another point which I think is also going to be very interesting in the future is that there could be a combination of different trades. So historically, there are different trades who don't really talk to each other. But I think through digital, we're actually allowing different trades to work together. And one example of this, which we have in the construction industry, is the prefabrication area, where you suddenly have people who actually have a mechanical engineering expertise, working together with architects, engineers, and construction people to create the house in a prefabrication style, and then which is also very efficient and also has less errors ultimately. So I think, as I said, it's a combination of those two areas.
Philip, many thanks for that. And if I can just turn to you, Michael Mcguire, lecturer in computer-aided architectural design and technology at New College in Lanarkshire. From your title, not much tech required in your bit. It looks like it's completely all over it. Michael, can I ask you, obviously you've got a very specific role as WorldSkills UK's training manager for BIM, Building Information Modelling, the competition. Before we talk about that though, computer-aided architectural design and technology, almost I'm fearful of your answer, because I imagine it's always been about technology, and now I imagine it has changed even more so.
Yeah, that's correct. I was an apprentice myself in the structural steel fabrication sector, and to get off of the tools at about 24 years old, I went back to further education. I went to evening classes, and I think what I learned there about computer-aided drafting, what we had at the time was a course that most of the students went into construction and digital construction. The course that was available for people at that time was called Architectural Technology, and it's still a course that's available and is still quite relevant, but it's very much theoretically driven. We decided that looking at my past career, learning through an apprenticeship, that's actually learning on the job, learning very relevant skills. What are the skills that you're required to do? Yes, it's all backed up by theory, but let's put the focus on what you're going to be required to do. So our students, when they leave and they go into, many people have said it there, I've been writing down the major cities. We have Glasgow and Edinburgh are major employers of architectural technologists. And we've got lots and lots of companies that help us to design our courses. But the whole title of the course definitely sums it up. The entire focus is computer-aided architectural design technology. Everything that the students do is backed up by their Revit modelling skills, AutoCAD skills, etc. We can teach them how buildings go together. What they do is they bring back a whole bunch of drawings to us, and everything is focused on what would the students do. A couple of points actually to make on that, because people have been saying about how resilient people might be to change. I think the digital construction sector has changed enormously in the past 5 years. It has completely changed 360 degrees, if not once, maybe even twice. We, since 2016, have had to learn a whole bunch of new standards even to work to, and processes. Standards, British Standards 1192, which have since been replaced even since 2016. From they come out, we're now looking at ISO 19650 standards. So it's definitely not an industry resilient to change. It's definitely not the industry for you. It's changed more than any other.
And the role that you have, particularly the role you have as part of WorldSkills UK, being a training manager, and I've seen the work that you and people like you do firsthand, and it's not only incredibly complex because you're dealing with many different personality types who will all have different concerns as they go through that journey, but also emotionally, because you are emotionally tied into the success or otherwise of the people that go through the world and the work that you're doing when you're delivering them to get to that world standard to compete internationally.
Yeah, and while I have the role of training manager for the Building Information Modelling Squad, the three best young people in the UK, Darren, Connor and Mona, I'm backed up enormously by that emotional side. We have performance and skills coaches through WorldSkills UK, and genuinely, I could not do the job without them. It allows me to focus where my skills are definitely on the training side, the technical side. I can teach the students how to compete, and we've heard many people today actually even bring up some students don't want to compete because they don't want to finish second. We heard earlier, that's a really hard thing to do if you're competitive, to be told you are second. Out of 8 or 10 people that compete in the national final, only one person can finish top. So we are looking at everybody else and how they actually deal with that. But the skills coaches and the performance coaches are definitely there, and they bring out and a completely different side to the students. I can certainly train them, and over the past year, I have seen my students get better technically, but I've also seen a huge emotional change in them as well because of that backing.
We're going to come back to you, and there's so much going on behind you that I want to talk about at some point, which may be your love of ballet or your love of music, or indeed your WorldSkills UK branding expertise. We will maybe go through that if we can. Josie, if I can return to you, I mean, we've heard a lot about the way that specific areas have changed for certainly the other two panellists, and I wonder, as far as your role at Ernst & Young is concerned and the work that you have seen, you now know the speed at which we've changed over 6 months. And people are talking about a further industrial revolution, another revolution of change. Do you think this is it for now? I mean, I thought this was it when they invented the fax machine. I thought, my goodness, there cannot be anything else. That was back in 1988 or 9. I remember getting my first fax thinking, that is it. They've invented everything. So don't take my word for it. That's why I'm asking you. Is that it for now, or do you think we're going to see another 6 months of change at breakneck speed?
I think it's just going to get faster and faster, I'm afraid. As somebody who remembers a pager, I similarly like you, sort of keep up, but all of us need to continue to keep up, because I think what COVID has shown us is that COVID has actually only accelerated what was there already. So we had already seen shifts in the workforce, with people doing much more remote working, much more flexible working, not just in terms of the hours that they do, but the kind of contracts that they have and the roles that they have. So we've seen, the big rise of the side hustle, etc., etc. And we already had lots of collaboration tools and lots of tech tools that enabled us to do our jobs in a remote way or in a different way, different, faster, cheaper, better. And I think that innovation in technology is just going to continue to go faster and faster and faster. And all organisations are going to need to keep abreast of the technology and continue to build the skills in their teams in all those areas that I talked about previously. So both the sort of deep technical stuff and can most people use it, and at the leadership level, can leaders support their organisation to drive through that change. So we are going to need, all organisations are going to need all the digital skills to not just keep up, but to stay ahead of the digital change that is coming, and I think coming faster than ever.
And if I can pick up you up on those 4 words, different, faster, cheaper, better, you have to have all 4. And in many instances, you don't have all 4. You may have faster, you may have cheaper, but I think we've all experienced changes in tech that have not delivered different or better.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think that those changes are the ones that are not going to stick around for so long, aren't they? I think that where we're seeing innovation that will stick and ways of working that will stick is those areas where technology and the digital skills that go with it have been able to accelerate customer service or enable workers to collaborate better in a way that really works for the customer or the employee.
And while we're with you, and I will come back to Philip and Michael in a second, and it may well be, Philip and Michael, you're happy to answer this next question, which has come in from a viewer. And just a reminder at home, at any stage you can click on the right-hand side of the screen, click where it says ask a question, just make sure we have your name and ideally your job title so we can connect you in the industry that you're working in, and we'll ask as many of those questions as we can. And this is a question that's come in from Andy Knight, who says, and this is a very, I would say this is a tough question, but you Josie, may have an immediate answer for this. What is the next biggest digital change going forward, says Andy Knight? I suppose if you knew that, you would have invented it, and you would not be sitting here. You would be at the top of the FTSE or the NASDAQ in the likes of Amazon and Alibaba and the rest. But what's your gut feeling? Is it going to be communication? Is it going to be industrial? Is it going to be something else?
I think the big one we've seen in the last 6 months, of course, has been tech to support collaboration. One of the bits of tech that I am super interested in is the technology that supports us to travel around better. So anyone who's interested in like where technology is going next, I would absolutely keep an eye on those organisations that are investing in kind of heli transportation and e-scooters and even the hyperloop that gets you from one side of the globe.
Time travel, are we getting there?
Yeah, absolutely. All of that. But I think we're going to see that in the next 10 years. And then I think the other thing to really keep an eye on is the way that technology is actually changing not just the world of work, but the world of consumerism. So looking at, Airbnb is a great example. Uber is a great example of, there's a taxi company that doesn't own any taxis. Here's a kind of hotel company that doesn't own any hotels. I'm really interested to see where's the next kind of, Uber of, and we're seeing quite a lot of it in fast fashion, so that's growing quite quickly. So, the idea that you don't actually own any clothes, you just kind of rent them through an app, those kinds of things. And I think that what we're seeing is technology enabling us to do things in a totally different way to how we currently do them. And I guess last point on this, us as consumers are actually pretty good at keeping up with that sort of thing. Probably all of us in the audience have got an Uber app on our phones, whereas 10 years ago, we'd be, trying to find a black cab or asking the barman for a taxi number. So us as consumers are very good at keeping up with tech. And I think the challenge for us is how do we keep up with tech in our work job, in our, jobs, as well as how well we are, how well we keep up with tech in our day-to-day life.
Josie, thank you for that. Philip, if I could put that same question to you, and I'll give you two possibles. So Andy's actual question was, what do you think the next biggest change in digital is likely to be? I'm paraphrasing, but that was the spirit, I think, of his question. I might ask you a different one in case that one is a route that you don't want to go down, and that is, what problem in your own industry do you feel is still left to be either made easier or to be resolved that you haven't yet got a digital solution for? Either one of those. Start with Andy's if you want. If that one's too tough, then just go with mine.
No, I think really that a big topic is going to be how software can assist decision making in the future. So, along the lines of machine learning, where you're completing a task and the computer is asking you, do you really want to do this? Because that would have an implication on X, Y, Z. And I think this is going to be a really big change in the industry, because that way, I think lots of problems could be avoided. As you know, still we are using digital tasks, but you're still using a keyboard and you still have writing mistakes and you still have lots of things. So the input at some point is, if you read it one-to-one, is not very valuable. But if you basically, for example, if you're having a BIM model, which has potentially over 1 million different data points, you could read a lot of information out of that. And I think in the construction industry, data and data analytics and all of those kind of things are going to be big disruptions and assisted decision making.
Thank you for that. Michael, what about you? Either the next digital invention or the next challenge in your own sector that really needs a digital solution that you haven't got yet?
Well, I know Andy quite well, and the next time that I can pose a difficult question for him, I won't hold back. But I think basically for us in digital construction, in the construction sector, I'm in education, and we're always trying to look at it and say, if I'm bringing students in, and students come to me for 2 years, so they do that kind of first year and second year with me, and then primarily they can go to university for third year, or they, more often than not, because our course is set up in a way it's very vocational, most of our students actually leave and go straight into employment. What I'm kind of looking at is the whole change towards building information was driven by the government's construction strategy of 2011. That's what really forced the industry to move and develop and actually take the digital technologies that were already there and then develop them further through them to create a single collaborative model. The new government construction strategy of 2025 and looking at 2030 as well, that's going to be the big driving force behind it, I think. Until we actually know what's in that, we don't know what the government would like. We can anticipate that it's going to be for us in digital construction a single cloud work shared model, which we already have the facility to do, but maybe a lot of companies haven't yet picked up. And as an educator, I've got to look at it and say, that's 2025. I need my students now. Let's anticipate what that might be so that we can give them the skills that they're ready to go and join the workforce in 2025.
Thank you for that. And Andy, many thanks for that question. If you want to add your own question or indeed point of view or talk about some of the areas of expertise that you have in relation to this topic, please do. You can just click the right-hand side of your screen where it says ask a question, post your question, your name and your job title so we can reference where you are in what industry you are in, and we'll ask as many questions as we can. If I can go back briefly to Philip Mueller, who I think is still their education manager at Autodesk. One of the things we've debated and discussed for much of the day today, and indeed I'm sure we will do into tomorrow as well, is the value of competition. As far as you see it, what is the value of particularly international skills competition?
I think it's really huge. So just from our experience from the last 3 years, what we've seen in the BIM competition is that it's exceptional. The reason for this is there's actually a couple of things to this, specific also to the UK. So I think that the UK has a very unique position with, as Michael referenced before, the BIM mandate which the government brought out was really early in comparison to other European countries or even internationally. And I think everything in that area, which has been developed since then, is really leading the way internationally. Also, what Michael also referenced is the new ISO, which has been coming out in terms of information management, which also gives, I think, students here in the UK, when they learn about it, an advantage to go internationally and abroad. And I think especially the competition. So let's put it that way. Normally, like when students are educated, you only have so much contact hours you can provide people with skills with. And I think the opportunity of having a competition and challenges students to go the extra mile. So there could be additional content, which is, for example, extracurricular, which students can learn and then to compete in a competition. And the more we move virtually, I think competitions and those kind of things become more and more important because lots of people learn the same things. And then suddenly you have really the opportunity in a live environment, even if it might be virtual, where people can show their skills each other. And the problem is that lots of people sit at home. So being active on social media and sharing what they are competing is, I think, also really important to show that students are advancing their skills and so on, for also in terms of employment. And I think especially participating in the WorldSkills BIM competition, if you're studying or if you're in the AEC industry, I think gives you an absolutely big advantage for employability, not just regionally, but internationally.
And one of the things we've been speaking about today is the whole reason behind this International Skills Summit is about creating new opportunities for technical education. And this is, of course, for young men and women of all backgrounds. And I just wonder, Philip, if I can ask you first, one of the issues that we do still see in every sector, that there are still traditional expectations of male, female, of young, old, which have yet to be overcome. And one of the challenges that particularly people in tech, and maybe it's the same with Michael in construction, is that if people don't see themselves represented in that career, they may not believe that that is the career for them. Is that still a challenge for you? And if so, how are you overcoming it?
No, I don't think it's an issue really anymore. So what we're seeing is that the numbers are extremely changing. So the building industry predominantly was a male industry, and this has shifted very much. Also through the topics of being able to stay in the office, don't have to do the production side and so on. The industry itself has been becoming really more compelling and different. And this also reflects in different trades that digital actually enabled to have more convenient jobs, let's put it that way, than rather be very physical jobs in every space. So I think, what we are seeing currently is that, for example, girls who are really good in math or girls who are really interested into different areas also of technology really advance extremely strong. So there are lots of thought leaders, female thought leaders currently out there in the building industry who really shook up the world in the construction industry. And I think really that digital allows to remove a barrier which was there before, which prevented people for showing what they really can do. So I think now skills and everything which you can work with your brain basically allows you to really skyrocket your career.
Philip, many thanks for that. And Josie Clue, we might end with you, partner Ernst & Young, People Advisory Services, Government and Public Sector. I thought it was very interesting, one of the things you were saying earlier on about the way that new businesses have arrived, and without focusing on the names you used for a reason that will become very clear in a second, but you were talking about firms which deliver cabs but without actually owning any cabs, firms which deliver, for example, that there are a number of apps which will deliver you a meal even though they have no involvement in making or preparing or coming up with the food. There is frustration amongst some about that model because, in a sense, there are businesses who are working very hard to survive. They're realizing that digital is the way they then need to reach out, and they're finding that a significant percentage of the money that they would otherwise earn is going to the middle person who is offering what is undoubtedly a highly skilled, highly complex, incredibly impressive service and interface, but it's also a significant bulk out of the original producer's income.
Yeah, there is a debate to be had, isn't there, about the structure of our digital economy. And I guess without kind of commenting on any of the individual cases, I think that there's a really interesting debate for us to have as a country and indeed internationally about how we regulate the new technologies that are being developed and the companies that then sort of gives birth to. And I think one of the things that I'm really interested in is not just the sort of technical digital skills that we need to be able to build the app or analyze the data, but also in the softer side, which is how do we get the digital skills into government, into regulation, to help people, to help us as a nation set up the system right, so that our economy and our society runs as we want it to, getting the best of the wonders that technology and digital can bring, whilst protecting all of the things that we think are really important about how our economy and our society should run. And so I'm actually really interested in not just the technical digital skills, but what does that mean for the ethicists that we need around the place? What does that mean for the regulators and the lawyers and the civil servants? Because of course they all have to be one, if not two steps ahead of the technology to be able to think about how you harness it for good and make sure that all of its impacts are positive on all of us.
Okay, many thanks to all of you for joining us live on this session this afternoon. To Josie Clue, partner at People Advisory Services, Ernst & Young, Government and Public Sector, Philip Mueller, Education Manager, Autodesk, and Michael Mcguire, Lecturer in Computer-Aided Architectural Design and Technology at New College, Lanarkshire. Very briefly, Emma Roberts, if we can just return to you just before we finish. We're slightly over time, but I think it's important just to wrap up and get some of your reflections on what you heard, because to be honest, for me, there were some takes from that I hadn't thought of and considered before.
Absolutely. Fascinating session for me. I think every time we engage in this sort of discussion, we all learn something. And I think that's something that WorldSkills UK is committed to doing. So we actually have some more digital research, which is in development at the moment. And what that wants to unpick, at least partly, is young people's attitudes towards digital skills as well, which is not something we've had lots of time to touch on today, but hopefully at a future session we can do that, because I don't think we really understand fully how young people view digital skills, whether they're apprehensive about them, whether they're really keen to engage in them. We kind of assume that because they've grown up with technology that they'll want to do it, but that's something we need to explore if we're going to be able to take up these opportunities.
Okay, many thanks indeed as well, Emma, for joining us on this session too. Just a reminder that during all of our sessions, if you want to feedback, give some thoughts, ask some questions of the panel, you can do so by using the window on the right-hand side of your screen. So that is it for session 4, Developing Digital Skills to Boost International Investment. Coming up at 3, so in just almost exactly 15 minutes time from now, we have session 5 at 3 p.m. And that is using international benchmarking in skills to drive productivity. And we're going to be joined by Paul Fitzpatrick, General Manager Toyota Apprenticeship Programme, by Babak Jahanbani, who's Head of Learning Systems at Festo Didactic, and Fraser Minskip, who's a High Performance Skills Coach at WorldSkills UK. Until then, we will see you soon.